Good afternoon. You are tuned into Ability Matters, a program that covers matters to do with abilities, disabilities and everything in between. Ability Matters is one of the longest running disability-related programs in the whole wide world. Starting as Headway On Air in 2007, you can now listen to podcasts of previous Ability Matters programs on YouTube and Spotify. Just search for Ability Matters. Ability Matters is brought to you by My Home Living Care, an NDIS registered disability.
That's right, listeners. This is Ability Matters on 106.9 VOX FM. I'm your host, Tony Scondimilio, and my co-hosts today are not with me, unfortunately. They're off doing their own thing. It's all right. I'll try and handle this on my own, but here we go. So, yes, good afternoon. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in to Ability Matters on the Illawarra's greatest community radio station, 106.9 VOX FM. And now I'm going to open up today's show with, of course, it looks this way. It might be raining again, but it's my thing. I've most apt song by Supertramp. It's Raining Again from 1982 album, Famous Last Words. Now that song I just played for you then was Supertramp, It's Raining Again from 1982 album, Famous Last Words. And now it's going to jump straight into, we'll start off the show pretty basic. We're going to get into the interview with Michael Eggers, which has been broken into 3 parts. So you're going to hear the first part now.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Sean, and I'm here with an interview for Ability Matters. I'm talking to Michael Eggers, the Operations Manager at Solve Care. How are you going, Michael?
Pretty well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, not a problem. So let's start off a little bit of your background. You and I bump into each other a little bit outside of this, mainly around soccer. But,
in the soccer football community,
Yeah. So what do you do with football there?
So currently I started refereeing about 3 years ago.
Only 3 years ago?
Only 3, yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
I was still playing because the way football is run in the Illawarra nowadays, you can play a lot longer than probably what was originally planned. So I've been in the community league area for a long time.
Okay.
Only finished playing last year. I'm fast heading towards my 60th birthday at the end of this year.
Oh, that's a good career. Wow.
And I thought I can't play forever, so I picked up refereeing to still be involved in the game. So far, so good. I'm enjoying the interaction. If I knew I would enjoy refereeing this much, I probably would have done it years ago.
All right, and just let's go a little bit wider. What sort of area do you live in, and kids and other hobbies and things?
So I've been involved, living in the Illawarra for pretty much all my life, apart from 3 years where I went overseas to study and work.
Where'd you go?
I went to Switzerland to study hospitality management.
Okay. They're big over there. There's a big school over there.
Big schools over there, yeah. So that was a good experience, and then came back and got into hotels.
Sorry, not to get diverted, isn't that where that guy from North Korea went to, one of the hospitality schools over there?
Well, there's quite a few hospitality management schools over there.
You obviously didn't meet him, though.
Yeah, probably not.
He's a bit younger, I think, anyway.
Yeah, probably. And came back to Australia and worked in Sydney for a few years at a hotel as a trainee manager, and then saw the light and came back home to Wollongong.
And you were telling me you're involved with the Novotel there for a number of years?
Yeah, I was there for in 2 stints over for nearly 27 years, doing various roles, but mainly in operations, so front office operations and also functions operations, and worked in the sales department and revenue department as well, looking after reservations. So
Sorry to put you on the spot. Any juicy stories from the Novotel that you can say on air?
I probably can't. There's still probably...
you can tell me them later.
Disclosure, yes, absolutely. There's probably still disclosure that I've got to keep quiet about. But I learned a lot over my time there, over 2 stints. And I actually worked my way up to general managership, which was my aim. Yeah. And left the Novotel and went to another property. And I was there for about a year, and I realised general managership wasn't for me. Yep. So I got out of that industry for a little while, did a couple of things and fell back into hospitality and went back to the Novotel in a lesser role, but I'm still part of the department head team and still part of a very good growth area.
Cool. And before we talk a bit where you're at now, you've got a couple of kids or? Yeah,
2 kids. They're both adults. Oldest is 23. She's got a double degree in marketing and also a self-interest in a Bachelor of Arts with distinctions in both of them. And but now she's wanting to restudy and get into dentistry. So that's a bit of a left field thing. Yeah, she didn't have a science background, but she's had a grandfather here locally in the Illawarra who was a dentist for a long time. He's now passed on, but he was from a long line of dentists.
So she's going to go for a third degree.
Yeah, exactly. Well, she's got to sit a qualifying exam, but she's also got on my mother's side. One of my cousins is a paediatric dentist in Sydney.
Okay.
And my daughter has babysat for her a couple of times. They got talking, and then that interest in dentistry came in. So she sat the qualifying exam a couple of times, but just wants to get it right because it's not an easy test.
Okay, is that to qualify to get into the
course? Yeah.
Oh, right.
So I suppose back in our day when we left high school, you could go straight into a medical degree, whereas these days they like you to get a degree first, so an undergraduate degree, and medical studies like dentistry and also medicine to become a doctor is a postgraduate degree.
So like a science degree though as undergraduate or something? Or anything?
Whatever.
Arts as well?
Because the qualifying exam is not just on science, that's part of it, yes.
Okay.
But part of it's about humanities. So they're interested in, I suppose, the medical professionals to be good people. They can talk to people. They can have that good bedside manner, so to speak.
That's good, because I've met a few doctors over my years of working in disabilities. A lot of doctors I've spoken to will often give a very negative or pessimistic outlook, and I say, look, why do you do this? And they've said, well, we don't want people to kind of think something's going to happen and be disappointed. But I'm like, well, you've got to give people hope. Like if you tell someone their kid's never going to walk or talk when there's a good chance that they will, that's pretty devastating to a lot of parents. So interesting that they're building that back in.
Yeah, and I've got a son who's just turned 19. He's first year of uni. He's a high achiever. He did very well in his HSC last year. He's aiming for a double degree in engineering and commerce.
Engineering, oof,
yes,
that's heavy.
Yeah,
I thought about doing engineering, but there's a lot of work. I ended up doing commerce, or IT.
Yeah, okay.
And that's going to take like 6 years or something, or 5 years.
Well, that's probably 4 or 5 years, depending on how far he takes. He might drop one. He's not sure yet, but he's coping with the workload for both. So
cool.
Yeah.
And so you moved through the hospitality kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I suppose when COVID hit, I was at the Novotel at the time, and pretty much the whole hotel was shut down. And we were under that JobKeeper thing I could work 3 days. So my department was open.
Okay.
So even though we shut down most of the hotel, and we kept, I think, 2 or 3 floors open for essential travellers, like government workers and that sort of thing that had to travel around.
Yeah.
So, I was working 3 days a week. And then when things were on a soft open again through the COVID, I saw an opportunity to supplement the income I wasn't getting by working 1 day a week with a small disability company called Ignite. I did one day a week just doing admin for them and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Stuff that they weren't good at, like doing service agreements and scheduler supports quotes and things like that. And through that process, I learnt a hell of a lot about disability services and, speaking with support coordinators, participants, meeting participants, helping with the recruitment of new staff. My knowledge grew, and I'm still learning every day. It's a thing I like to do. I'm lucky I've had 2 good bosses in the 2 companies I've worked with. They're both RN, so they've got
So
the
you went
clinical.
from Ignite to where you're at now?
Correct, yeah. So I was with Ignite for about 2 years.
Yep.
And helped them. They were an unregistered provider, and I helped them through that registration process.
Ooh, that's a painful process.
That's brutal.
Yes.
That's brutal. Yeah.
Talk about admin.
Yeah, that's right. And we also changed our employee model from a contractor to employment, so under casual employment. So that was a big growth area for.
And so was there a lot of
Ignite.
similarities between what you did at Novotel and what you did in that sort of space?
Yeah. My forte, I suppose, is people management, adhering to standards and procedures, because coming from a hotel background where we're a multinational company,
okay, yes,
which had lots of standards and procedures, and we were audited officially every 2 years and then unofficially once a year, so we're always going through an audit process.
Was it like one of those mystery shoppers that someone would turn
Almost,
up and...
yeah. We that was part of the process as well. Yeah. So you've always got to walk the talk,
yep,
so to speak. So that's the same with NDIS registration. As you may know, there's 2 parts to an NDIS registration. Part 1 is to check that your standards and procedures meet the criteria, and part 2 is they actually talk to your participants and your staff,
yep,
and the management team, and to make sure that you actually walk the talk.
Yep. Yeah. Proven actually
That's right.
what's in your manual is actually happening with the staff out there, which can be tricky because you get all different kinds of staff and different levels of experience, and it can be a lot of fun. But
so we give them about.
There you go. Very informative. Now, I knew myself when I was reviewing playlist I set up today. I knew the name Michael Eggers, but I couldn't quite pick from where. And now I'm just hearing that now. I knew him from Ignite. So I say I'm a part of Ignite as well. I have services with Ignite as well, but yes, he's a good gentleman, yes, and knows his stuff to run a company like that. Next song is England Dan and John Ford Coley with I'd Really Like to See You Tonight from 1976. Great little tune here. A different song. Here we go. Yes, Mr. Sandman, talking about the wonders of dreams. Now, that was the original vinyl version. I just thought that was the best version. It was good to have the original versions out there again. Released by Vaughan Monroe with his orchestra. As you could hear all the violins in the background there and trumpets and whatnot. That was obviously Mr. Sandman from the 1954 original vinyl release. Written by Pat Ballard. There you go. And now let's just jump back into the second part of the interview with Michael Eggers, formerly from Ignite. Here we go. Thanks for tuning in to VOX FM.
So now you're with an organisation, Solve Care?
Yep, Solve Care.
What are you doing with them?
Again, a registered provider. I'm operations manager with them. Again, for me, it's mainly about the procedural aspect of the business and making sure we've got the right resources for our staff and also making sure we're meeting the need of our customers, which is our NDIS participants. If you take out the hospitality side of it, when I was looking after my customers, I'm doing the same thing here, different industry, but the same processes align.
Same
principles.
But different content.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And Solve is a kind of a medically focused service. It's a little bit more at the medical end of the support.
Yeah, so our managing director is a registered nurse. She's actually from Tasmania, but did her uni degree here in Wollongong. And she, postgraduate degree, she worked for a couple of companies. Probably didn't, she sets very high standards. Mm-hmm. So she probably didn't think I
could do better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Exact words.
Yeah.
I could do better.
Yeah.
So she started her own company.
How long ago did she start Solve Care?
It's now just over 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah. Got registered first, started operating, mainly doing community nursing, things like in-home nursing care. Go into too many specifics, but I think you understand when I'm coming through things like wound care
But that's probably worthwhile because people out there might not understand it. So probably talking about that. A lot of people, and I think, and we'll talk about this a little bit. A lot of people, especially in the medical sort of area, still think that there's nurses in these group homes, and that's a bit of a hangover from when all these places were providers institutions, and there were a lot of nurses. Since the mid '80s, there was a thing called the McClure Report that said people do better in the community than they do in institutions, and so there's been a move since then. If you sort of count the numbers, that's 40 years ago. But there's still like a real big perception in the medical community that there's nurses out there. What kind of work do you guys in terms of that sort of medical
so the
care?
nursing care started with things like wound care and catheter changes, and it made it a bit more comfortable for the participant to have it done in their own residence, whether it's a group home or at their own home, if they're still living at home, rather than going to a clinic, which may not suit their physicality to be able to get to a clinic.
Yeah, and the residential workers that do work, or the care workers that do, are very highly trained, but they're not medically trained.
Correct. Yeah.
So that includes injections and a whole lot of...
So depot injections for the psychosocial disabilities.
Yep, or insulin or something.
Insulin, that's right. Yeah, so they're all, because the RNs are medically trained, they have that capability behind them. But we've got 3 RNs on our books, so including our managing director. And if we get an inquiry for mainstream community care that needs a high intensity, our RNs can provide our staff the training, and therefore we can provide the extra training like wound management, bowel management, catheter management, that sort of thing. So you're still getting care on a day-to-day basis by the normal disability workers, but they're getting medically trained by the RN, and they oversee every now and then. They get their clinical training.
And so you use the word higher intensity, which is actually a technical term within the NDIS. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Yeah,
so it requires a greater level of care. So things like the RN might change a dressing for a wound, like pressure sores and that sort of thing.
And pressure sores are like when someone's in bed
or sitting in wheelchairs for a length of time, and they actually get sores on their pressure points.
That bit's always
and they open up and they can become infected, and that's the thing. So you might need a weekly dressing change by an RN or an EN, so an enrolled nurse.
And even with that, I've seen beds that the high-low in beds that sort of, well, not high-low, I forget what they're called, but they inflate different cushions. And so
different pressures.
There's different pressure being moved all around the body. But
I don't think they're still good enough to alleviate the
that's
pressure
one of those things
sores.
that, even someone not getting dried properly out of a shower, a little bit of moisture,
and can irritate.
And then, it doesn't take much for it to then develop into those sort of sores, and doesn't take much. People often, if they're sedentary or not moving around, have not such great blood flow. And so, that sort of stuff, once something's happened, it can be tricky for them to heal.
Correct. Yeah. So, and other things like catheter management. So your regular staff can do the day-to-day, making sure the area is clean and free from sedatives and that sort of stuff, and empty the catheter bag and that sort of thing.
Yep.
But the RN still comes in every 4 to 6 weeks to change the catheter and that sort of thing. So
and it represents great value for money, because then you don't have a nurse doing all the stuff that a non-nurse needs to do.
And even though the nurse has a regular appointment to change, they can still provide that emergency care in case something goes wrong.
Yes.
But you've got your regular disability support workers that can do the day-to-day checking.
Yep.
Yeah.
The savings, I guess, and great. I mean, obviously saving money is a thing, but also the quality of life, that people can live at home or live with others and not be in a hospital.
And they get comfortable with their day-to-day support workers as well. That's that recognition, and they get comfortable with them, and they're able to accept that more personal service.
Okay. And so how many clients do you guys work with? Like what? And do you have non-nursing staff?
We do. So most of our staff are your general disability support workers. We've got about 35 of those on our books. They do your day-to-day services like your community access and in-home supports, that sort of thing. We've got a few clients that need that high-intensity training, like peg feeding. We've had some children, and now we've got a young adult on our books who needs that enteral feeding. So
and what's peg feeding or enteral feeding?
For those that can't, for various medical reasons, they can't feed themselves, or they've got a swallowing issue and it becomes so dire that they need to have a tube inserted directly into their stomach, pre-prepared formulas and things that they can feed them through that tube.
Yep.
And there's also care, making sure the site is clean. So again, the assessment will get done by an RN, and then the day-to-day service by one of our trained disability support workers, and then overseen by the RN, just in case something goes wrong. This is a bit, I suppose, peg feeding with a tube going strictly into the stomach is a bit more dire. If something goes wrong, it probably will have to go to a doctor to get rectified.
And again, it's an open wound in a sense,
correct.
So infection and all those sorts of things. And
so hygiene's paramount.
Yes.
Wearing PPE and preparing the food and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and even despite the best things, the little tube can get caught on things and pulled out,
and the formula might not be at the right consistency. That you've got to flush it, and also they can administer medications through that tube as well. So
yes, because care workers can't do that. Yeah, and it's interesting. Care workers can do things out of Webster packs and the normal sort of medication.
Correct.
So, but not decide on the dose or injections and some of those sorts of things. Yeah. Do you have any group homes?
We don't. We are registered for running supported independent living homes. We have one coming online in South Nowra towards the end of this year or beginning of next year. So we've been indicated as the SIL providers. Yeah, that's been a long time in waiting. We've already got one resident who's willing to wait until that facility is ready.
Yes.
Which is exciting.
Are you building it?
Not us.
Okay.
No, there's another company locally that are SDA providers, and they're actually doing the build. And
so again, to sort of bog down with SDA, what's the difference between that?
Yeah,
SDA
specialist disability accommodation. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've probably got me on the technicalities there, but we are a registered SDA provider as well.
Yep.
So we are actually managing some properties out in another state, two states, Tasmania and Victoria.
So SDA, I guess, is kind of the landlord.
Correct.
I guess,
so it's like a property,
of a specialist service,
so
specialist accommodation.
So an SDA provider runs pretty much like a real estate agent. So you're managing the property on behalf of the owner, and because they're not a registered entity, they can't operate themselves or talk to the NDIS, and that's where we come in, and we can talk to the NDIS, get them enrolled, and make them visible in the NDIS system.
What are some of the characteristics of SDA homes? What kind of types are there?
Yeah, probably the most common is HPS, or high physical support needs. So that means all entries and doorways all have an easy access and flat, no steps, that sort of thing. They're wider doorways, wider hallways.
So people in big electrical chairs can get around. Correct. Or hoists.
Yeah, and there's enough room for them to get around.
Yep.
They have anchor points for hoists to be installed.
Yes.
They have fully accessible bathrooms, and usually the new builds these days, they have a bedroom with an ensuite, which I think is pretty cool for a person with a disability who have probably been housed in other facilities where it's been a normal home and not necessarily a disability-friendly bathroom.
Yep.
To have your own bedroom of a sizable nature, again, if you need that physical capability of having a wheelchair, you can get around your room and you can go into your bathroom really safely. And then going into the common areas, there's a couple of lounge rooms and the kitchen with high physical support needs. There's at least one bench that can be lowered and raised.
Down to someone's level in a wheelchair.
That's right. So if they want to prepare food for themselves, they've got the choice to be able to do that.
And there's a lot of things too with that, with lowered door handles and light switches,
correct.
and also implementing technology so things can be controlled without someone having to, because sometimes you're in a wheelchair, you got to open a door and there's a spring on it that closes the door. It's very hard to open it. And
especially if you're in a wheelchair. Yes.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Yeah, I remember a few years ago, there's that new shopping centre was put into Wollongong. But I remember I was at Coles, which is on one side of it, and I had to get to the other side of it, and I had a trolley. And the amount of lifts, you got to go up one lift and to another lift and down a lift and across. It definitely wasn't thought about someone in a wheelchair or even parents with prams or someone or like me with a trolley full of drinks to get from one side to another. So it's,
I suppose for me coming outside of the industry, working within it now, when you go to places, that's the first thing I think about. How can someone with a wheelchair get here, or someone with a walker or whatnot, you know, and how can they get into this building safely? And it's amazing how your eyes are open to what you don't have, I suppose.
I remember 10 years ago, maybe a bit longer, 15 years ago, there was a, what do you call it, what runs the elections, the voting authority?
Yeah.
What are they called?
Electoral Commission.
Electoral Commission, They had an office in Burleigh Street and they'd marked their office as accessible. And I had someone in a wheelchair that couldn't get in there. And so I went to them and said, you've said fully accessible, but there's a step. And they said, yeah, but it's just one step. I was like, well, it will be 100. You're not getting and like there's the wheelchairs you push by hand, you can get up a little step. Yeah. But the ones with the batteries can weigh 100 kilos and the person on top 200, like they're not getting up just one little step. So, it is interesting what people's fully accessible.
Or what their perception is.
Yes, And they put this on their website and everything. And, we had a bit of a robust conversation about, no, you're not accessible. It's not bad. Yes. Specifics in saying fully accessible, they have to take into account various other like different size wheelchairs. Just one step could be like a whole hurdle. Yes. Next up, I've got Eagles with New Kid in Town, 1976. And after that, I've got the Young Rascals, but I've got a bit of a story there, so don't worry. Here it comes. Yeah. Okay, now we're just going into the third and final part of the interview with Michael Eggers, formerly from Ignite. That's where I know him from anyway. So let's get straight into it, shall we? What are the kind of future for self-care? So you're looking at doing the group home there, or the still home. Yep. I should say still supported independent living is the technical term from the NDIS.
Correct.
Some dinosaurs like me that have been around for a while, they call them group homes.
That's right. I still call them group homes because that's the terminology I've heard as well.
A lot of people
do. But it's I suppose getting used to the terminology.
Yes.
Every industry has its own acronyms and things,
yes.
So I'm
and
getting
the NDIS,
used to those.
I mean, NDIS, there's an acronym itself.
Correct.
The NDIS have a lot. So what's the future for self-care?
Yeah, so growth in that area, like housing. I think that's important for people with disabilities. Again, the NDIS was brought about to provide independence to people with disabilities. Still housing or supported independent living housing gives them that choice and gives them that independence, I suppose. So by being a SIL provider, we're looking at providing that 24-hour care if they need it, but also looking at their needs and if they need other things like going out into the community to provide that as well. Yeah, and it's one of those things that does save a lot of money because people aren't in hospital or facilities where it's expensive. But I also get excited. It's a good quality of life. They're living at home with their family or their friends. And, I've worked with people that are mums and dads that have had strokes or traumatic kind of terrible accidents. And instead of living in an aged care facility where their kids come visit, they can live at home with their kids, and so organisations go in and support them and keep them healthy. And as things arise like they do, infections and things like that, they can be looked after and have a great quality of life. So, I've got a perfect good news story about around that sort of thing. I've just brought one of our SDA properties over the line down in Victoria, just outside of Melbourne.
Over the line? What do you mean?
Well, I've finally dealing with the support coordinator and through the end to the NDIS to get the funding for the participant. I think this inquiry started in February. This lady in Victoria has advanced MS. She's living in Vic Housing, so similar to Department of Housing here.
Yep.
And it just doesn't suit her physical needs with her deteriorating health and physicality.
And most people, I think, understand MS is one of those degenerative things that you just, it's ups and downs and peaks and troughs, but over the long term it does become more effective.
Yeah. So she, at the moment, she requires to be hoisted in and out of bed, and she's only got one of those temporary hoists in her current facility, or her home, but also the home itself is not suited for her advanced
so it's just
physical
one
needs.
Step like before, like
probably
one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Through the owner investor that I've been dealing with, I had an inquiry for their region. I thought, perfect, let's put them forward. Arranged a site inspection. The participant went in with her support coordinator, and I think she just wheeled into the front door. And this is a 2-bedroom with on-site overnight accommodation for care workers if they need it. And she just wheeled into the front door, and she just burst into tears.
Yeah.
And she thought, I can't believe someone would go to the foresight of building a place that's perfect for my needs.
Yeah.
And that's a real feel good. And I relayed that back to the owners of the property that built it for this sort of reason.
Yeah.
They were chuffed. They welled up as well.
Yeah.
Because that's why they invested in building this sort of property. To hear that feedback straight away, they brought back the realisation. I mean, yes, they've got frustrations getting the funding organised and getting visible in the NDIS system. And that can take a long time.
Yes, it can be very tricky.
Yeah, but one inquiry, and we've got one person over the line, and I think she moves in on the 1st of July.
Yeah, wow.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a good industry to be in. Yeah, I mean, there are lots of challenges. And
absolutely, yeah.
A metric ton of bureaucracy to navigate. At the end of the day, when you have a win, it's someone's lives vastly improves.
That's right. And there's an area of SDA funding that is called Appendix H. I don't know if you've heard of that, where you don't have to necessarily come with a SIL provider, but you might have family that look after you.
Okay.
And you generally get a little bit more NDIS funding to cope with your family to come and live with you.
Yes.
So the participant will live in, so it's essentially a 2-bedroom house with the extra room for carers.
Yep.
You would normally have 2 participants plus the caring company. But this one, Appendix H, allows for the participant to come with her personal carer, so her partner.
Yep.
So the partner will live in the 2nd bedroom. 1 bedroom will be for the participant themselves because they'll have the hoist and that sort of thing. So
yep.
Yeah, so there are allowances to not necessarily have the SIL provider come with you.
Yes.
And they make allowances for that with
I
the
guess
SDA
they've kind of drop-in support where required.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, it's too often we hear these stories of things going wrong with NDIS, and there's a lot of fraud out there. And probably, I think it's a lot smaller than sometimes people think, but even a small amount's not appropriate. If we don't want fraud for anything, there's a lot of people getting a lot of benefit. And I think back to 20 and 30 years ago, I was involved, and if you didn't have your disability by 18, your parents had to abandon you in a hospital to get assistance. And I guess the question I like to ask at the end of a lot of interviews, you're Harry Potter with a magic wand, and you can wave it and you can make anything happen. What are you going to wave it for? What's the spell you're going to cast?
I suppose the ideal thing is for, in this sort of industry, disability industry, that participants that have a need are getting the right care and funding behind them to get the right care that they need, whether it's medical based or they need therapies or that sort of thing, but it's funded appropriately to their needs. You hear lots of stories about people getting funding that they don't need, and people getting funding or not getting funding that they were in areas that they do need, and it's about getting that right balance. So if everyone could get their needs met, that would go a long way, I think.
Yeah, that is a bit of a magical process sometimes, how that does or doesn't work, and some people getting what they don't require and other people getting what they should get but not getting it.
Correct.
It's a good world, and I guess that's what there's a lot of changes coming through the NDIS to try and achieve that.
Yeah,
it's like
long way to go, I think.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, well, thanks for coming in. Just how do people find out about Solvecare?
Yeah, Solvecare, we are online, so solvecare.com.au.
So SOLVECARE,
Yep.
solvecare.com.au.
Yep. And phone number 02-8358 7682.
Oh, I should ask. So, you what areas do you cover? Because you mentioned Victoria, South Australia there.
Yeah, so that's mainly for housing, but we are registered to provide care in all states of Australia.
Okay.
But predominantly in the Illawarra area, and we're beginning to grow down into the Shoalhaven area as well.
Yeah. Okay.
There we go. Michael Eggers. We just heard the interview then. Now their website was the email hello at solvecare, all one word, .com.au. Now the phone number, which might be more important to some people, 0242 169381. And of course, this is all from the website solvecare.com.au.